She said she deleted Snapchat, but her location update put her at his house. I didn't notice the first lie when it happened, because lies don't always announce themselves with sirens. They arrive as a shrug, a laugh, the kind of offhand promise you accept because you want to be the kind of person who accepts it. Maya tossed her phone onto the couch one Tuesday and said she deleted Snapchat just like that, like taking out the recycling. "It's for teenagers," she said, grinning at me over the rim of her mug. And honestly, I hate the drama. Less noise, more us. I nodded like I'd been consulted. We'd just signed the lease on the place with the brick balcony and the narrow kitchen that forced us to brush hips. So I was enthusiastic about any ritual that made us sound like a team. I believed her because I liked the version of me who believed her. Calm, trusting, not the guy who checks receipts against alibis. If you don't inventory the little things when they're still little, you don't notice when they start to multiply. We did what new couples do. We chose a grocery store loyalty card as if that were a lifestyle, fought over how aggressively to use fabric softener, argued about whether it was normal to stack plates while they were still wet. She worked in social media for a boutique agency, which meant her phone was always in motion, a tiny planet with its own seasons of notifications. When she deleted Snapchat for good, she made a show of it, thumb hovering in theatrical disbelief, giggling when the icon did its little shake. "There," she said, and the screen went tidy. It wasn't until later I realized I'd never seen the part that mattered. The account settings. The confirmation that all the sinew beneath the icon was actually gone. At the time, I didn't ask. At the time, I wanted to be trusted more than I wanted the truth. Friday was the kind of cold that sneaks under sleeves. Maya said she was going to a girls' night, wine and reality TV at her friend Lexi's place. Nothing worth dressing up for. She wore the oversized gray sweater that made her look like she'd been poured into comfort, hair clipped back at the crown, perfume soft like the last sentence of a lullaby. "Don't wait up," she said, kissing my cheek. "We'll probably talk until midnight and cry about our mothers." She set her phone on Do Not Disturb and slid it face down into her tote with the casual finality of a magician returning a card to a deck. I watched her tug on her boots and lock the door and thought, "Look at us, look how easy this is." I stayed home editing an episode about truth and noise. The guest was a therapist who said people don't lie to you first. They lie to themselves, and you're collateral. At 11, I made tea in the microwave like a degenerate and wandered to the living room where the iPad sat fat and ignored on the coffee table. It was mine more than hers. She used her phone for everything. I tapped it awake, thinking I'd read, but my thumb is a creature of habit. A muscle memory opened an app I hadn't touched in months. Snapchat bloomed yellow and ghostly. My account, a dusty room of old jokes. A piece of me wanted to close it out of respect for the promise we'd made to be adults. Another piece of me watched the little map icon pulse at the bottom of the screen and thought, curiosity isn't a crime if you're already innocent. SnapMap is designed to be playful, but there's something clinical about it too. The way it pins people like specimens. My Bitmoji sat at home, a cartoon with my haircut, and I laughed at how ridiculous all of this was. I pinched and slid the map, watching friends I hadn't spoken to in years clustered in other cities. Then by reflex, I searched for Maya, not because I expected to find her, but because the absence would be proof of our shared adulthood. The map didn't hesitate. It bloomed a tiny version of her in a pink hoodie I'd helped her choose, standing on a tidy grid of streets I recognized even before the label stabilized. Ryan's neighborhood. A strip of townhouses with identical shrubs and assigned parking, 20 minutes from where we lived. My stomach didn't drop so much as refuse to obey gravity. The therapist's voice from the episode said, "A lie is a story with a hero and a villain. The truth has no casting call." I stared like looking longer would make it less real. I checked the time on the corner of the screen. The status circle around her Bitmoji glowed green, active 1 minute ago. I zoomed out, back in. The same anxious push-pull you do with a malfunctioning vending machine. I texted her, something neutral. "Hope you're having fun." No response. 10 minutes later I called, then stopped it on the first ring because I didn't want to be the cliché, the panicked boyfriend interrupting laughter with suspicion. I took a screenshot and then felt ashamed of myself for taking a screenshot. Like I'd stolen something private from a person who'd told me she wanted less noise. When she came home after 1, cheeks pink from the cold, she tossed her tote onto the chair and smiled the way you smile when you're relieved the world hasn't ended without you. "Hi," she whispered, kissing me, tasting like mint gum. "Lexi is a disaster. You'd have loved it." I wanted to slide the iPad across the table like a detective in a procedural. Instead, I asked, "How's Lexi's place nowadays?" And she said, "Same couch, same terrible lighting," and I nodded. And we orbited politeness for a minute until the gravity of the question got too strong. "You deleted Snapchat," I said, aiming for casual and missing. Yeah, she said, blinking. Weeks ago. There's a version of this next part where I make a mistake. Throw the evidence like a grenade. There's another version where I say nothing and swallow it whole and let it burn a hole in my stomach. I tried something in between. I opened the iPad to the map and said her name, and when she looked down, her face didn't register shock or guilt. It registered amusement. Baby, she said, laughing a little, like I'd asked why the sky wasn't red. Snapchat is broken on that thing. It's logged into your account from college or something. Those maps lag for hours. Also, we talked about this. I deleted it. She took the iPad and pinched the map, as if to reassure me that the continents hadn't drifted. Ryan lives near Lexi. You know that. She kissed my forehead. I'm not mad you looked, she added, which somehow felt worse. But seriously, don't let tech win. It lies more than people do. The therapist's voice said the opposite in my head, and for a second I wanted to play the tape, to bring in an expert witness to subpoena common sense. Instead, I muttered something about glitches. She went to brush her teeth, humming. The apartment felt full of humming, like a fridge that never shuts off. Sleep is honest, or it should be. I woke at 3 to the sound of the radiator clicking and the shape of Maya curled away from me, phone on the nightstand face down, as if even while unconscious it needed to be modest. I got up for water and passed the living room where the iPad sat like a dare. It wasn't noble, what I did. It wasn't evil either. It was the compulsion to clarify what I would otherwise replay in my head until it frayed. I opened Snap again, heart beating in a stupid, performative way like it wanted applause for effort. The map unfurled. My icon at home. Her icon not at home. The green ring again, not hours later, not lagged, but freshly minted. The little path dots, the breadcrumb animation, moved one notch south along the row of townhouses, as if a cartoon version of my girlfriend had decided to take a stroll. I zoomed in until the street names pixelated and stabilized around a little gated walkway I recognized from a party years ago, back when Ryan was still a story we told to make each other jealous. The Bitmoji stopped right at the gate, like it knew I was watching from our dark living room, holding my breath like that could erase what I'd seen 10 minutes before. I stood there with the blue light on my face and an ache in my molars. I thought about the promise she'd made with a smile and an empty screen, the way you can perform deletion without deleting anything at all. I thought about the therapist's tidy distinctions, the ones that break under the weight of a green ring and a familiar block. I wanted to wake her and say, hey, the map says you're at his place in a pink hoodie we bought together, and if this is a glitch, I will apologize forever. Just please make this software tell the same story as your mouth. Instead, I watched her cartoon hover at the gate, and in the corner of the screen, the time ticked forward, and the circle around her avatar pulsed like a heartbeat I couldn't hear. The morning after, everything looked ordinary enough that I almost believed I'd dreamed the whole thing. Maya was still asleep, hair sprawled across her pillow like seaweed. Her breathing was steady, phone face down by her hand. I made coffee, stared at the steam, told myself glitches happen. People post old photos all the time. Schedules drift. Maps misplace pins. Maybe Lexi really did live a few blocks from Ryan. Maybe the ghost I saw at his gate was just the app replaying something from last year. That's how I tried to file it away. Static, not signal. But static doesn't leave receipts. That afternoon, while clearing the table, I found a thin plastic hanger tab wedged under the salt shaker, the kind dry cleaners use. I didn't think much of it until I remembered she'd left the house in that oversized sweater, the one that smelled faintly of Dior Sauvage when she got back. She didn't own that scent, and I sure as hell didn't either. I bent the tab between my fingers until it snapped. Nothing incriminating, just another coincidence I told myself to ignore. Over the next few days, I started noticing things I'd trained myself not to see. An Uber receipt in the trash with a drop-off in a different neighborhood than the one she'd said. A latte punch card stamped at a cafe she never mentioned visiting. A place 2 blocks from Ryan's townhouse. None of it was hard proof. But when you stack enough splinters, they start to look like a plank. Every time I tried to raise a question, she had an answer ready, smooth and dismissive. That was Lexi's ride. We grabbed coffee somewhere new. God, Ethan, you're starting to sound paranoid. She'd laugh like I was telling a joke badly. It was a performance. Hers, and then mine, pretending to believe it. One evening I brought it up more directly. Why did your Snap map show you near Ryan's place? I asked, keeping my voice calm. She didn't hesitate. Because Lexi lives near Ryan. Honestly, it's creepy how obsessed you are with this. She tilted her head and smiled like she was humoring a child. I deleted Snapchat, remember? If something showed up, it's old data. The worst part was how confident she looked saying it. Like she was so sure I'd doubt myself more than her. And for a moment, I did. I nodded. Apologized even. Though some part of me screamed that I was apologizing for breathing. At work, my friend Noah noticed something was off. He's the kind of guy who says little but means it. "You look like someone rewound your life 10 seconds, he said as we packed up gear. I told him vaguely about glitches and suspicions. He didn't laugh. "If you think you're losing it, keep evidence. Don't confront. Just collect." Nusso. He said it like he was advising me to back up a hard drive. Matter of fact. I brushed it off in the moment, but the words stuck. That night, I synced my iCloud across devices for the first time in months. I wasn't looking for proof, just trying to feel sane. As files loaded, I saw thumbnails of screenshots, ones I didn't remember taking. Then I remembered. The iPad sometimes auto-backs images to the cloud. There, buried among old memes and work notes, was a screen capture of her Bitmoji glowing green, stamped with a time and date that lined up with her girl's night. The digital echo of the thing she swore didn't exist. I stared at that screenshot until my eyes watered. My reflection blurred in the glass of the monitor, pale and smaller than I expected. There was no confrontation that would make this clean. If I showed her, she'd laugh again, say it was lag, a glitch, an old cache. She'd twist it until I was the controlling boyfriend, the one making a problem out of nothing. Maybe she already was telling people that story. Maybe I'd been cast as the villain without ever auditioning. I closed the laptop, but sleep wouldn't come. Around 2 in the morning, I got up for water and walked past the couch. The iPad blinked with a notification I hadn't touched. "Maya, you have a new snap from Ryan." My chest tightened. I wasn't logged into her account. This was some stray auto-login, a leftover from when we used to share devices casually, back before things felt fragile. The ghost she claimed to have deleted had come back, bold enough to leave its name in the dark. I didn't touch it. I just stood there, the glow painting the room in cold colors, realizing the question wasn't if she'd lied, but how many times, and how deeply I'd let myself believe her. And in that silence, I started to understand Noah's advice. Don't confront. Don't collapse. Just collect. I tried to tell myself I was done digging. I'd seen enough, the snap, the receipts, the hanger tab, but curiosity doesn't accept truces. It keeps scratching until you bleed. By the next weekend, Maya had a work dinner. Some vague networking thing she claimed her boss insisted on. She left in a black dress, perfume sharp enough to announce her before the door even shut. I ordered takeout and pretended to watch a movie, but the quiet was too loud. Around 9, I checked my phone without meaning to. There it was again. The ghost of an old notification. Maya last active 1 minute ago. And the map, when I dared to open it, pinned her just a block away from where Ryan lived. I wanted to throw the iPad through the window. Instead, I messaged her. "Hope dinner's good. Don't drink too much wine without me." 20 minutes later, she sent a photo of her and 2 coworkers, plates of pasta in front of them. But the timestamp didn't match the glass of wine in her hand. It looked like something saved from earlier in the night. The shadows were wrong. I screenshotted it. My gallery was turning into a museum of doubt. Sunday morning, as I was taking trash out, I ran into Tessa, our neighbor with the golden retriever that barked at everything. She mentioned casually, "Oh, I saw Maya last night near Oak Ridge." Funny coincidence. I was walking Max past those new townhomes, and I thought it was her car. My stomach clenched. Oak Ridge was Ryan's development. I asked what made her sure, and she said, "The dent on the left bumper. Hard to miss." She smiled, unaware she'd just cracked something wide open. Later that day, she texted me a clip from her Ring doorbell. "Thought you'd get a kick out of this," she wrote. On the grainy video, headlights swept across Ryan's driveway. A familiar SUV pulled in, same dent, same plates. A figure stepped out in heels, fumbling with her tote, walking quickly to the door. The frame caught her just long enough for me to see the outline of Maya's dress. Then she punched a code into the keypad and slipped inside. The timestamp, Friday, 10:47 p.m. While I'd been staring at Uber receipts, she'd had her own access code to his house. When I asked her about it Monday, I did it softly, like a test. "Weird question," I said over breakfast. "Do you ever still talk to Ryan?" She rolled her eyes. "God, no. Why would I?" I stirred my coffee, said nothing. She noticed my silence, tilted her head. "Ethan, you've been off. If you don't trust me, just say it." I wanted to. I wanted to drop the video right there between the eggs and toast. But I remembered Noah's words. Don't confront, collect. So I lied. "No, I trust you." She relaxed instantly, like someone who'd passed a pop quiz. "Good. Because honestly, your energy lately, it feels controlling. Like you're waiting to catch me doing something. That's not us, right?" Her eyes softened. Her hand brushed mine. I nodded again, tasted metal in my mouth. She kissed me across the table, and I let her. because pulling away would have been its own confession. That night, I sat alone in the studio after everyone left. I opened the Mac we used for editing. It still had an old auto login of her Snapchat account, some leftover convenience from when she'd borrowed it. I hadn't touched it in months. The dock pulsed with a notification. Maya. New snap from Ryan. My hand hovered over the trackpad, but I didn't click. I didn't need to. The name itself was enough. Proof wasn't a matter of screenshots anymore. It was a pattern, a rhythm, a song repeating so loudly it drowned out every excuse. I leaned back in the chair, headphones still around my neck, the empty studio buzzing with the hum of equipment. I thought about how easy it had been for her to turn suspicion into an accusation, how quickly she'd framed me as the controlling one. And I realized this wasn't just cheating, it was narrative control. She wasn't only rewriting our relationship, she was rewriting me. I closed the laptop gently, as if slamming it would wake some sleeping monster. My phone buzzed then. A text from her. Home soon. Missed you tonight. I stared at the words until they blurred. For the first time, I didn't feel anger. I felt strategy settling into my bones. If she wanted to spin stories, fine. I'd start collecting my own. Not for confrontation. For clarity. For survival. I didn't say anything that week. I cooked dinner, laughed at her jokes, let her kiss me like nothing was wrong. On the surface, we were fine. Maybe better than fine. But underneath, I was rewiring myself. The urge to scream at her had burned out, leaving something colder. If she was going to tell stories, I'd build one too. Only mine would be stitched from facts she couldn't spin. I started small. I checked the Wi-Fi networks her phone connected to. She'd once borrowed my laptop and forgotten to disable auto-join. Buried in the list was RYNGUEST. I recognized it immediately. Ryan had a cocky streak. Of course, he'd name his guest network after himself. I took a screenshot, saved it to a hidden folder labeled Invoices. Next came the photos. Maya was casual about snapping things. Her coffee, her shoes, the ceiling fan above Lexi's couch. She thought she was being clever when she posted them hours later with captions like Girls' Night Chaos. But metadata doesn't lie. I quietly exported a few to my desktop, checked the geotags. 2 of them were stamped at Oak Ridge, right on Ryan's street. Another, from the same girls' night, carried the unique lighting pattern of his kitchen, shadows cast against tile I remembered from an old party. She could change the caption, delay the upload, even alter the story order. But she couldn't erase the pixels of his home woven into her images. Then there was her fitness tracker. We both used them, mostly to compete over who took more steps in a week. One night she said she was crashing at Lexi's because they'd had too much wine. I nodded, played the role. Later, I checked the synced app on our shared tablet. Her heart rate had spiked at 2:12 a.m. Meant. And stayed elevated for 40 minutes. Not the kind of spike you get from a nightmare. I logged it quietly, another artifact in the vault. When Ryan texted me, it almost made me laugh. A long, patronizing message. Hey man, just wanted to say stop pressuring Maya. She doesn't need the stress. Let her breathe, okay? He even ended it with a thumbs up emoji. My thumb hovered over the keyboard, ready to send back every screenshot, every timestamp, every map. Instead, I deleted the draft and locked my phone. If he wanted to play the good guy, I'd let him. Villains always monologue before they fall. The real break came from Tessa again. She stopped me in the hall with Max tugging at the leash. Weird thing, she said, scrolling on her phone. My ring caught some people walking up to the townhouse across from mine Friday. One of them looked like Maya. Wanna see? My throat tightened. She hit play. The video was grainy, but there was no mistaking the shape of her. Heels clicking, tote sliding off her shoulder. She leaned into the keypad like she'd done it 100 times, tapped a code, and disappeared inside. The timestamp burned on the bottom. 11:06 p.m. Mim. Friday. I thanked Tessa, kept my voice steady, promised to bring over a bottle of wine sometime. Inside our apartment, I packed a small duffel. No confrontation, no screaming match. Just folded shirts, socks, headphones. When Maya came home that evening, she found the closet half empty. Where are you going? She demanded. I shrugged. Need some space. Work's been heavy. She looked at me like she was trying to decide which script to use. She settled on wounded. So you just leave without talking to me? I kissed her cheek, light as a feather. We'll talk. Then I walked out, duffel in hand, leaving behind the iPad on the coffee table, still logged in, still glowing with the quiet weight of truth. She called that night, then the next, messages piling up. Please don't shut me out. We can fix this. It's not what you think. But for once, I wasn't rushing to explain myself. I was done arguing with ghosts. I had the evidence. I had the story. And for the first time in weeks, I had silence that didn't feel like punishment. Maya finally cornered me 2 weeks later. I'd ignored most of her calls, answered with clipped one-liners when I couldn't avoid them. She begged for a chance to explain everything in person, so I agreed. Not at our old apartment, not at her favorite cafe, neutral ground. A quiet diner off the highway. The kind with buzzing lights and sticky menus. She slid into the booth across from me like she was sliding into character. Her hair was perfect, makeup sharp, but her hands betrayed her. They wouldn't stay still, fiddling with sugar packets, tapping the table. "Ethan," she said, soft, like I was a frightened animal she didn't want to spook. "This is all a misunderstanding." I didn't interrupt. I let her talk. She spun a story about work projects, about helping Ryan with campaign brainstorming, about how she downloaded Snapchat again, just for one day, because some clients demanded it. Her voice wavered in all the right places, but her eyes kept flicking toward me, gauging whether I bought it. When she finally paused, I reached into my backpack and set my phone on the table. Not unlocked, not shoving it in her face, just placing it there, screen dark. "I don't need explanations," I said. "I just want honesty." She tried to smile, but it faltered when I spoke again. I laid it out gently, piece by piece. The Wi-Fi network she'd connected to, the geotags embedded in her girls' night photos, the Uber receipt that dropped her 2 streets from Ryan's house, her fitness tracker spike at 2 in the morning, and finally, the Ring video of her at his keypad. Her face drained, color sliding out like someone had pulled a plug. She opened her mouth, closed it, tried again. You kept all that?" "I didn't have to keep it," I said. "It kept itself." For the first time in weeks, she didn't laugh. She didn't gaslight me or twist the story. She just sat there, breathing hard, eyes wet, trying to find an angle that wasn't there. "Ethan, please. Ryan was just—" "I don't need the script," I cut in. My voice wasn't loud, but it was steady. "I'm not here to scream. I'm not here to forgive either. I'm here because I deserve clarity." The waitress refilled our coffees like nothing monumental was happening. The clink of the pot, the hum of the neon sign above, the scrape of a fork from another table. Normal sounds, steady and grounding. "I'm not going to drag you online," I said. "I'm not going to tell your friends. I'm not going to make a scene. You'll tell whatever story you want, and maybe people will believe it. That's fine, but I know the truth. That's enough." She blinked at me, confusion flickering into anger. "So what, you just walk away? Like none of this mattered?" I sipped my coffee, bitter and thin. "It mattered. Just not the way you thought." She started crying then, messy and loud. A month ago, I would have reached across the table. This time, I just let the silence fill the space. I didn't hate her. I didn't love her anymore either. I felt something quieter, heavier, the end of a story I hadn't agreed to but had finished anyway. That night, back at the apartment I was subletting, I opened my laptop and recorded a new podcast episode. No names, no details that could point to her. Just a theme, how lies sound when you play them back enough times. How silence can be louder than confrontation. I called it The Noise We Don't Notice. When I uploaded it, I didn't expect much. But the episode spread. Listeners wrote about recognizing the same patterns in their own lives, about catching themselves believing half-truths. It wasn't revenge. It was something cleaner, reclaiming my story. Maya kept texting for a while. Promises, apologies, sometimes anger. I archived them all. I didn't block her, not out of hope, but because I no longer needed to. For the first time in months, I wasn't waiting for her version of events. I had mine, and it was enough. A month passed before I saw her again, by accident. I was walking home from the studio one evening when I cut down Oak Ridge out of habit, headphones on, podcast drafts swimming in my head. That's when I noticed the SUV with the dented bumper parked in front of Ryan's townhouse. Her car. I froze at the corner, heart thudding once, then steadying. Through the blinds, I caught flickers of movement. Voices, faint but sharp, slipped into the night when someone opened the door. I didn't move closer. I didn't knock. I didn't want her to see me standing there, looking like the ghost of a man who still cared. So I walked on, past the row of identical shrubs, until the street bent out of sight. That night, my phone buzzed. A text from Tessa. "You asked me to let you know if she showed up again. You don't need to answer, but you should see this." She sent a video file. I tapped it open. The grainy black and white view of her Ring camera filled the screen. The clip showed Ryan's front porch, Maya fumbling with her tote, voice raised. "You said you'd delete it," she snapped. Ryan grabbed her wrist, snatched her phone, waving it like evidence. "Ghost mode, Maya," he barked. "Just turn on ghost mode." Do you want me to babysit you? His words were sharp, stripped of the charm he always wore in public. She tried to snatch the phone back, her voice cracking. You promised no one would find out. The camera caught the fury in his face before the door slammed shut. The recording ended in silence, save for the shuffle of Max's paws in the background. I sat there staring at the paused frame. Maya, mid-reach, expression raw with panic. For weeks, she'd tried to paint me as controlling, paranoid, a villain conjured by my own suspicion. But here she was, cornered by the man she'd chosen, fighting the same battle she once claimed I invented. The irony didn't taste like victory. It tasted like release. I didn't send her the clip. I didn't text her at all. What would I even say? I told you so? Number. That wasn't who I wanted to be. Instead, I opened my podcast recorder and spoke quietly into the mic. No scripts, no edits, just my voice. About how some truths reveal themselves without your help. About how silence can be a final act of power. About how not every story needs a confrontation to have an ending. I titled the episode Maps Don't Lie Forever. It spread faster than anything I'd recorded before. Emails poured in. Listeners sharing their own stories of gaslighting, the way technology sometimes betrays the lies people try to curate. They didn't know my name, her name, or his. They didn't need to. They just heard the pattern and recognized it in their own lives. Weeks later, clearing out old emails, I noticed one unopened message sitting in my inbox. It was auto-generated from an old invitation I'd once sent to Maya, back when we planned a date night at the cafe on Main. The subject line read, I finally deleted it for real. The body of the email was empty. I hovered over the message for a long moment, then clicked archive. No fanfare, no anger, just a quiet closing of the tab. Outside, the city moved on. Cars, voices, the hum of a world that hadn't paused for my heartbreak. I leaned back, headphones around my neck, and let the silence stretch. For the first time in a long while, it didn't feel like absence. It felt like space, like possibility, like freedom.